we're just talking about what everyone's dealing with, man. Like with the pandemic being issued, things being closed down. How are you adjusting with work, with home, with working with entrepreneurs? We're just trying to capture what everyone's doing right now within the community. We talked to about a few dozen startups this week, and they're all dealing with issues. Everything from not having their events happening, not having sales calls happening, not having revenue, having to pay people while they're working at home, and disruptions of supply chains. Like it's a lot of things people are dealing with, especially founders, especially startups. So that's what these live series is about. We're still just waiting for Ashley over here. Okay, Startup TV. Play poker. Ashley, man, what's up, buddy?
How you doing? How you doing? Everything is good. How about your end?
Pretty good, pretty good. We know we talked late last night. You sent me a LinkedIn post at 1:30. Fellow entrepreneur, burning the midnight oil, trying to figure out what to do with all this crisis going on. And funny enough, man, we got on a call at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yep, just 2 a.m.
I think by the time I ended that call, it was like 3 a.m. and we covered everything about all the changes happening that startups have to face. You talked to a lot of VCs recently about what's happening to their portfolios. A lot of disruption in the marketplace. That's what we're trying to do here with this live series, is trying to document with companies what they're struggling with, what they're seeing, any opportunities that they recommend people to be doing. And what we talked about last night is super interesting. So let's bubble our way into that. So Ash, man, what are you reckoning? Like, is this apocalypse? Is the world as we know it changed completely, or is this a blip in the radar? It's gone back to normal.
No. I definitely think it's not a levels of apocalypse or anything that's negative in the sentiment, but it is a very, very economically changing environment that's coming up. Like a lot of things from many different contacts I have from all over the world are reporting not only economic downturns that are coming up, but it's also causing a lot of issues to our financial systems. And this it kind of gives us an idea of this modern world, how sensitive and how fragile our ecosystem is, especially since the introduction of credit and everything into our financial macroeconomic systems. Some small little blip that causes huge chain reactions around the world only further create negative multiples on that side. So
sorry, but I think I'm going to turn back this way because we can't see other people who are joining us.
Okay.
Sometimes people interact and call questions, and it's coming up vertically. It doesn't switch horizontally. But yeah, let's keep going with that. So you're seeing also the crisis mode that the entrepreneurs are in, that companies are in, that investors are in. Any cases that stand out? Like, what are people dealing with?
Most people, like, funding is drying up. Like, it's most of the connections that I was speaking to, a lot of the corporate VC firms and the venture capital firms, everyone's trying to be reserved right now. In the time of crisis, cash is king. So everybody who would normally making large investments, it's hard to know what to do. But the thing is that it's also really a good time for entrepreneurs. Like, it's very, very good as an efficient lean models to build good businesses. I'm sure many people out there are seeing on LinkedIn posts from very, very prominent people talking about how some of the greatest companies that have come out to date have been formed during periods of crisis, where we realize the economic systems and things in place are not working, and we need to create new ones, new global ways of doing things. And so I think there is a huge shift, and I think what this, in the span of 60 days, not even 65 days, we've got the latest numbers I'm seeing are we passed close to 213,000, 214,000 cases, 8,900 deaths, more than 115 countries affected in 60 days. Like, that is just an insane number. So it's going to shift the entire landscape of how economic systems are going to be done, and we are just beginning. Some of the I don't want to sound alarmist or some kind of pessimist anyway, but it's only starting. What we're seeing in Italy and very large part of the world are just starting to come to North America, and it's very scary. What we need to be diligent in trying to make sure that we're equipping all the companies that are fighting it, all the resources out there that are trying to mitigate this, and stay indoors. Stay indoors as much as we can. Try to stick on social distancing, but yeah, I'm not sure. It's unprecedented times, man. Nobody in history has ever gone through something like this in the modern era. I mean, like we've had like the Spanish flu and the Black Plague that has happened, but nothing of this magnitude in our current society. So we're learning. We're gonna understand what the ramifications of this are over time. But at the moment, we haven't hit the peak yet. So we're on the way on the uprise into the peak. So
yeah,
unprecedented times.
Yeah, unprecedented times, and I'm interested to see how this shifts the economy. Right, a lot of entrepreneurs I'm talking to right now, they're seeing is like, there's blood in the water. There's everything they've been preparing for. It's kind of gone to shit, but it's like everyone's been reset to ground zero, and it's like trying to restructure themselves. So it's like 1 billion people plus going through the same kind of mentality, same kind of thought patterns, and same kind of issues. Also opens up a market. So looking at it from an entrepreneurial point of view, crisis also leads to great opportunities. There's a great disruptions in the markets and the way things are used to be doing. And the thing is, like, there aren't cars burning the streets. People are not dying lack of food, especially in Canada and North America. I'm not going to talk for the rest of the world. And the thing is, entrepreneurs are already gearing up, saying, like, how can we be part of this? And instead of sitting down and taking it and like waiting for other people to do it, they want to be also involved in the second line of defense, right? The front line of the healthcare workers who are barely seeing the actual crisis victims and trying to take on the brunt of this. But I feel the second line is entrepreneurs who are gearing up right now and figuring out how can we deploy technology? How can we deploy the internet? How can we deploy things like this, social media and interconnectivity to spread ideas, news, information better, get the resources to the front line as required? We're trying to create a separate kind of secondary infrastructure system. And I've been talking to a lot of people about that. How can we deploy resources better? How can they deploy their technology, existing or non-existing, that or could exist better, towards fighting these kind of problems? So this is something that we kind of jointly came together last night over that call, discussing this. So, I mean, let's jump into that, what Startup Fuel and what your disruptions you face as a company. You're clearly working from home right now as well, I'm assuming?
Of course, yeah, man, everyone is, yeah.
Yeah. You just came back from Chicago, self-quarantining, right?
Yep, self-quarantining. I'm not actually supposed to leave today or tomorrow back to Chicago, and I just heard news from from Justin Trudeau saying they're closing down the borders for non-essential travelers, and I'm not sure what that means, what that term is. I called into the both the customs department to ask them, what does that mean? Like, am I okay to come back after I have like work and business in Chicago? And they're like, we don't know. We actually don't know what to do, and we recommend just staying put. And so I'm staying put here in Toronto for as long as I can.
Please do, man.
Yeah, it's a scary world, and as you know, Illinois as well and Chicago has had one of the first places in the U.S. that was hit in terms of the coronavirus, and now even people that are in Chicago the case amounts are going up rapidly. And so, yeah, like we're as though in Toronto we're not facing that same level of spread just yet, and we're like our governments are taking great action. I fear a lot for the U.S. Ecosystem, mainly because they don't have the social healthcare systems we do, and I think times like this is when everybody will look at macroeconomic systems in healthcare and policy around the world and see which one fared well and which one didn't. And like now we're noticing that the kits from testing to deployment in the U.S., everything is income based for being able to spend. So right now, the people that over there that can't get access to the free healthcare and things out there are basically spreading it more and having a worse job. So I don't know. Like I'm staying put here in Toronto, where it's a little bit safer, a little bit more protected, and the healthcare system's a little bit better. But it's to see what is to come.
Yeah, that's well put. Absolutely. I mean, I agree. One of the things about Canada's like hybrid social policies versus open capitalism is that we at least have a nationwide healthcare system that can operate with joint government and private support. So really interesting seeing especially how smaller companies are already volunteering their time and volunteering their efforts into helping mitigate our healthcare risk and issues. One of the like heartwarming stories we've seen is it's not here. I think it's in Europe. Like one of the ICUs are running out of valves, and a company came with a 3D printer and started printing them out for free.
Yeah.
I mean, that is innovation, the innovation economy at its finest.
Right.
But I feel like the biggest problem is to connect the people who can solve these problems. What up, Axel just joined. Connect the people who have these kind of problems, the people who can provide them, right? The infrastructure support. I feel like the energy, the will, and the capability is out there. The resources are out there. We just need to connect them with the frontline issues. What are your thoughts on that? How do we do that better?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, just a little bit about this is kind of my goal or my vision for the many years now of being able to, not just specifically for coronavirus, but with Startup Fuel, to do this, connect innovators to resources to help them succeed. And in good economic times where things are going well and there's no thing, it's more to do with human improvement and, you know, efficiency in everyday life. Now when it comes times like this, we need to make sure that the right companies out there, the right innovators are being funded, they're getting the exposure and the support. Once people around the world get to hear, okay, this is what's working over here, we should try to replicate this. That's the only way innovation moves forward, once you disseminate that information, right? So like, this is one of the reasons why in the last 20 years, 30 years, why the world has advanced so much is because of the internet allowing us to spread the knowledge of what's working and also what's not around the world, so people know what to double down on and focus on, but also what to avoid because somebody else made that mistake. So saving time and effort and resources, right? So right now, there are tons and tons of innovations and startups and entrepreneurs and researchers all over the world in different labs and societies. What we need to do is bring them all together. We need to ignite them, give them exposure, bring them into one community, whoever is relevant to focus on fighting this, and then now get them the support from government and from corporations and from individual donors and sponsors to start acting fast. And it's not, like you said, a valve for ICU is a very healthcare specific, innovation, but it doesn't stop right there. It kind of expands into manufacturing and it expands into crowd control. I just heard a really cool article about this data company that's using big data to combine all the various cases and information on travel records and all that in Taiwan, that made the Taiwanese people a lot less susceptible to cases. So being so close to China, having so many different foreign nationals coming from there, they actually only have about 80 to 85 cases, which compared to everybody else around the world. And given their proximity and their location, we have to look at what they're doing right. And one of the things that they're doing right is their government opened up healthcare e-health databases from all their records and systems from travel and immigration, so that a big data company internally can go in and say, okay, who do we need to talk to? Who has come? How do we correlate the travel records to the immigration? And how do we reach out to them quickly to self-quarantine them? They even started working with the airline companies in the airports to figure out who is infected. How do we isolate them really quickly? This is all data. This is all a startup company place who then got integrated into the government. This is the kind of stuff that across the board, if we can mobilize, if we can put the right funding and the right resources behind, we can slow this thing down. And right now, like I said, we're not even at the peak yet. There's so much more to come, that if we don't do our part to step in, majority of the world is supposed to be looked to be infected. I think the latest numbers out of the CDC is about 50 to 60% of the world is going to be infected at this current rate in the next 6 to 8 months, and a lot more deaths and casualties and negative conditions are coming. So we all just can't sit around and do nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the fact that you touched on that, like 5 to 6 months. A lot of people are still trying to work on the assumption that this is going to be a few weeks thing. Even hearing from the government about their 3-week plan, right? Or 14 days of relief effort, 14 weeks of relief effort. Whereas health officials are saying that we're just seeing the beginning of this. We haven't really hit the brunt of it. What does the world look like with 3 months, 5 months, 7 months into this new unfound chapter, where we have to exist, mostly on virtual, mostly with disrupted supply chains, and with people getting sicker around us. For some reason, like, people are way more connected now than ever. I think that's not some reason. I think that's the main reason why people aren't panicking as much as they are, and why we're a lot more coordinated. If you see about like, if you look around, like there's no government enforcing issues as much as we would normally hear about it. People are almost taking it upon themselves proactively to feel like, okay, this is what we're doing for the community. This is what we have to do. Shut down our gym, shut down our stores, not go outside, work from home, figure this out. And part of that, I mean, Axel and us touched upon it last week too, is the boom for technology, right? A lot of people who are holding back on the old way of traditional way of doing things because it's comfortable are now forced to do that. I'm talking to so many people whose bosses were like super like, nope, you have to be in the office. You have to be in the office. Work is here, right? When everyone's all together, even though they're not being completely productive. But now I'm suddenly forced, hey, how do we operate it working from home? How does that work like? People trying to figure out, everyone from government to like large corporations to even startups trying to figure out, what are the best kind of tools to use to communicate? Even we are within our internal team. How do we chat? How do we restructured our meeting calls now to like morning stand-ups. We made the call yesterday. It's like every day at 10 o'clock, we're going to do a 15-minute call. Everyone's just going to do a stand-up about what they were currently working on, keep everyone aligned. And every week we'll come back and reassign, what are our weekly goals we're working towards? What are the monthly goals we're working towards? We've now realigned ourselves to be super agile because we're a small team. We can be, and that's a strength. Yep. And a lot of companies are now facing that. Some are even struggling for that. So in that kind of context, technology is really the one winning here. And those who can figure out how to use technology to better themselves. Like the world's being restructured. Like it's already happening. Yep. It's already happening. And it's such an interesting time to, I think we're going to look back at this in a year from now and be like, holy crap, this is going to be a radical transformation shift on how people do get work done.
Yeah. Honestly, like even this per se, we're like chatting over an Instagram live. If this epidemic or this pandemic didn't hit, we'd be in person doing this kind of interview or this question. But because of this, like you're right. Like we have so much technology tools out there, but many organizations don't know how to use this. A couple of my friends are working in major banks in Canada and major different large corporations, and they're leaning on the startup world who have been doing this for the last amount of years for remote work to figure out how do we best do this. Right? The entire concept of agile came out of the startup movement. To be able to create efficiency. Now the rest of the world is leaning on that and saying, hey, you've been doing this for 10 years. How do we do this now, right? And what you're going to see is, startup came up with this idea that we could be nomads. We don't have to be in the same place. For the last 11 months, I've been back and forth from Chicago, and I've been communicating with my team all digitally, putting in enterprise software to be able to keep track and do these agile meetings and all these different various types of, remote communication. Now, all these other groups out there who always thought, face-to-face communication and, being in the office is the best way to do it, we're going to see that entire shift once people realize, hey, you know what? We moved to this remote work and we didn't go under. We figured out a way to make it work. Now, more people, I think you're going to see a shift in productivity too. And I think in some places, when done right, there's going to be an increase in productivity. In other areas, there'll be a decrease, right? But overall, what you'll see is that now people are starting to open the idea that, hey, globally, this is possible. This is not like working from home, allowing less in-person real estate, and more like a digital remote work is possible. And we're forced into it now. And so when we come out of this, you're right, in a year from now, majority of the companies, the big corporates, the startup companies, are going to say, we were forced into it at a time that we didn't have the choice to, but we made it work. Now let's continue that for efficiency purposes. Let's do that to save on costs or save on overhead. And I think, like I said, it's going to be a really shift in movement of how business is done worldwide.
Yeah. And I mean, that's going to be a secondary benefit, right? Like, I don't, like, looking at, like, people, that this is a very infectious disease. People are getting very infected. The survival rates are pretty good. And looking at that, I mean, I think it's a fair assumption to look at everything we're doing as preemptive measures, really, to prevent the spread of a disease to those who are most vulnerable. And that's fair. And I think along that, I think it's perfectly reasonable to look at this, again, from the people who can support as an opportunity where they can be seen, new ideas can be heard, and new ways of connecting, right? Yeah. I mean, think about it, like the mass amount of people who are all going through the same kind of political change, social economic change, and being dependent on each other. Like today, the Minister of Finance in Canada just announced that they're going to be issuing a package. Pretty much anyone who works independently, freelancer, gig economy worker, entrepreneur, anyone who's dependent on a small business for income can get up to $900 biweekly from the government aid. They're calling it EI, but really what it is universal basic income.
Yep.
Right. And I cannot imagine this. We're coupling that with 6 months of deferred mortgage payments, right? And I'm looking at this and thinking, how free are some of the most creative minds we have in our population suddenly going to become?
Yeah.
Right. Suddenly, one of the biggest killers of debt killers, mortgages, is suddenly going to be deferred. You can have a stable stipend coming in, at least guaranteed for the next 14 weeks, government backed, right? And now you're also stuck at home, and there's a huge market opening of millions of people who are dealing with a similar kind of problem. I think that's a perfect storm for some crazy innovations to come out.
I'm so excited. I'm honestly excited for the fact of what we can do as a society to combat every time in human history. Whenever that we were faced with challenge as a race, that we always came back to combat it in new innovative ways. From all the way from the the pre-BC era and now until now, the last 2,000 years, we've always done something to improve the ecosystems to make us to survive. For the sake of survival and evolution, right? This is a new test. Nature is attacking us. We have something that is threatening the very core of our species. And even though, we look at mortality rates low right now, and most people out there are older, more prone to diseases and infections, who are passing away. That doesn't mean that the virus is not prone to mutate anytime soon and start creating and going after younger people as well. These things can happen. It can change. We don't know what's going to happen. So now we need to combat this. We need to step back and say, okay, we can't look at our ecosystems and the way things are and just keep it, laissez-faire attitude. We need to be preemptive and start attacking back, to this virus. And so,
I mean, sorry, I don't want to interrupt. Go ahead, finish your thought.
So I think one of the things that we're doing right now is we are launching at Startup Fuel this global COVID-19 challenge. On Thursday last week, when this pandemic started rising, I started realizing that on our site on startupfuel.com, we have a network of innovators from around the world. That's the purpose of what we're doing, like a LinkedIn type network for entrepreneurs. But if we've got something like this, we've got more than 800 companies globally, why don't we figure out a way to incentivize them and bring them together to solve this? And so for that reason, we have actually built a software to run virtual pitch competitions, to run virtual innovation challenges that we've been selling and giving to different groups. And after fine-tuning it and doing a very good job of disseminating global applications, we said this is the time for us to step up. For us to work with other groups like yourself and other ones around the world, pool together all resources we can, get sponsors, government, corporates, whatever we can, and start funding and giving exposure to the innovations out there that are coming out from this, and already pre-existing innovations that could be using what they've built in a way to solve these problems. Right?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I'm interested in working with. We talked about this last night as well. Loved the initiative. Thank you again for taking this on and doing this. I'm reminded almost there's a speech from 1956 where Ronald Reagan addressed the UN, and it was a very eerie one. He said something like, what if, he imagines, what if aliens came from up above and threatened all of humanity? For the first time, we'll be united together under one threat, one cause, right, and for a combined survival. And all the old hatreds and problems will kind of melt away in regard of that fact. And in fact, like you said, nature's attacking us. We're now united by this common threat and by this commonality of our situation. So what is that driving us to? And it's going to be platforms like what we're trying to build here together, right? With this pitch competition you're throwing up, bringing together ideas, open this marketplace. We're trying to get this hashtag trending, hashtag hacking COVID-19. How are you using your resource base, your knowledge base, your connections, your thoughts, your ideas, and coming together with ideas to, again, hack this problem away, right? Give solutions to where there are problems. How to connect people in a wider audience. So really looking forward to driving this. We were talking to Axel yesterday again too. He's working with a whole community that's helping the people in the entertainment industry. dancers, performers, everyone binding together to the exact same thing. How can they contribute and give back and support each other in the community? So really, this is really bringing a lot of people together. We're hearing a lot of fear and dissemination, yes, but a lot of people are not sitting down and taking this thing quiet. And so I'm really encouraged by the fact that other people are taking on this fight as well, bringing together their own networks. And I can really commend what you're doing with Startup Fuel and this new pitch competition. What's the name of this, and how can people follow along what you're doing?
So it's called the Global COVID-19 Innovation Challenge, right? I'll send you and give you a link as well where people can find it. It'll be on startupfuel.com, so you'll see it in the pitch competition section. We are now we've got some cash prizes already committed to it. We've got more prizes that are coming through, and I'm speaking to a lot more sponsors, government and corporate, and I'm also sending out requests through you and your networks and anybody watching out there to come back and kind of connect with me regarding this. We're looking at various types of sponsorship, funding, exposure, partners, innovation networks, universities, accelerated programs to spread the word, and also judges. So we've already gotten some really high-ranking professors in PhD in immunology, bacteriology on the platform. We've got health tech entrepreneurs, innovation experts, where we want more people to start reviewing these applications around the world and seeing which ones do we start funding and how do we start systematically giving capital to the ones that will help us, basically help them help us in the end.
Yeah. And I'm truly excited for this, Ashley, because of the many people I've met, you're one of the real globetrotters. You travel around literally meeting people. That's what you've been doing. I mean, you told me in our, I think, what was that, third podcast? The third BloomX podcast was when you came on with Startup TV last year. And you talked about how you spent the last few years meeting 1,000 people across the world, trying to connect them together to build an online community. Yeah. So you've been at this for a long time, and I think this is a perfect storm, especially for what you can do there with your reach and network, and what you've already have boots on the ground doing is bringing people together, building a virtual community who can bring the ideas that are needed much to the forefront.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like you said, I've been doing this traveling and networking almost twice a week for the last 9 years, all over the world. Like the amount of people I've met is in now the 30, 40,000 mark in every single major tech city globally. And I just kept doing it initially to figure out how to solve failure rate. Now it's coming to a point, now it's time to go back to every business card I got, every connection we've got, and just send this message that the startup world, through us and through the United Nations, is declaring war on COVID-19. And we want to bring everybody together and say, like you said, if an alien race comes to attack us, we will bind together as one human race, whether it's, Canadians, Americans, Chinese startup companies, all over Europe that are now, suffering the most now in Europe. Everybody can come around the world and come together. And this is what we're pushing. And for the next few weeks, the next few months, as this gets bigger and bigger, we're just going to keep trying to get more sponsors and more people to come in and support this. So anybody at home, if you want to share this with your networks, with people, this is the way we are doing our part to try to solve this. So we all have to come together.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I'm also very interested in is anyone who can bring it to, just like we are trying to create our narrative around this. I'm trying to capture the narrative through BloomX on what people are working on. You're trying to bring together people who can pitch these ideas together in front of qualified professionals and get validation on what to move in the market space and how to move in the market space, right? We also need people who can, bridge that portal gap between those who can fund these cool projects and people who can, receive the funding. So these kind of infrastructure needs to be built. It's like we're building this digital infrastructure online to combat the disease and the effects of disease, and it can't be done in isolation. So let's keep this communication communication line open, Ash. We're super open anytime you want. Let's do it live. We're working with a few other companies who are contributing their platforms, live platforms to how to stream better, connect better with the wider audience as well. So we'll keep you in tune about when we launch with that, and just focus on getting good information out there, good positive information out there that there is positivity there in this time of shadow. That people who want to do great things and change the world, this is the time for you. This really is.
This is the time to step up, man. You're right. Everybody out there can talk about, building this cool stuff, doing all these great things, building technology and infrastructure and all these things. But when it comes down to it, Are you there and ready to step up to the call? And now is the time where we all need you. We all need the innovators of the world in biotech, health tech, manufacturing, media, data, lifestyle, everything across the board where you can give your help. You should. And you really, really should try everything you can to do that, because we need you and the world needs you.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for your time. I know you got to get going and you just delayed a call just to be on this. Really liked the things we talked about. Again, anytime you want, we're going to do a lot more of these. So hacking COVID-19, we'll be doing 1 live stream a day. We're going to jump to 2 very soon. We have a few other major companies coming in. We have a TDSB trustee who's going to come on. We're going to have an MP we're talking to. Before this whole virus broke, we were talking to John Tory about coming on our podcast. So we're now coordinating with his office, see if he can come on live. That'd be kind of cool. How the mayor come on live.
That would be awesome. Yeah, I have a couple of contacts with him. I met him a couple of times as well, and I have his direct chief of staff as well. So let me shoot me after an email. I'll make an introduction and see if we can boost a little bit more.
Awesome, love it, perfect. All right, Startup Fuel. Thank you for coming on, Ashley.
Awesome. Thanks for everything, man. All the best, and I'm looking forward to our further collaboration together.
Perfect, man. Me too. Take care, buddy.
Sure. Stay safe. Stay safe.
Stay safe.